Look, optimizing value means understanding consumers. It means harnessing data and tailoring supply chains. Our next keynote, Jim Haworth, brings over 30 years of experience at the helm of some of the world's largest retailers. He served as Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for Walmart. I love their titles, Executive Vice President. I can only dream one day. Led Thai conglomerate CP Group and is the current CEO of Peak Group Holdings. We're looking forward to getting an insider's perspective on the global retail industry. At the end of this session, Jim's going to be joined by Kate Scott for a fireside chat after his presentation, so send through any questions as well. But please welcome to the stage, Jim Haworth.
You're fine. How is everyone this morning? You know, it's always difficult when you're the last speaker before lunch. And so, you know, I want to make sure we get through this. Or the Minister of Finance just talks about tariffs in the United States, and those are two tough places to speak about. So I'll try to make this interesting for the group as we go through today. Great to be with you. This is my first trip to New Zealand. I'm excited about what I'm hearing about the market and what you're doing to really help support New Zealand, but also the global expansion and where you want to go for the future. Now, I'm going to ask you a question here really quickly. How many of you like to sell products to consumers? Can I see a show of hands? Hold them up high. Now, look around. Well, keep them up just a minute here. So as you look around, those that don't have their hand up, you've got to wonder, what are they doing in this presentation today, right? We all should be thinking about, how do we serve customers? How do we serve the consumer? You know what's great about that is? Their expectations are always changing. And I'm going to talk a little bit here in a moment about retail and as you think about the evolution of what's happened with retail. But more than that, it's more about the customer. It's more about the consumer and the anticipation of understanding where they will take your business. And if you're not looking at it, I promise you, you've got competitors that are. They're trying to figure out how to do it better than what you're doing. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So I've done a lot of things throughout my career. I appreciate the intro as well. I was the COO for Walmart, was also the COO for Sam's. Started young out of my career, worked for Walmart right out of college. Worked my way up through the business, did a lot of different things. Ran stores, bought ladies' apparel, which is kind of an interesting point of my career, but worked all the way up to becoming the COO at Walmart. As she mentioned, not only have I had experience in the United States, I also have had experience globally. I've looked at retail all around the world, but specifically ran the third largest retailer in China. And so thinking about being a U.S. person running the third largest retailer for a Thai conglomerate owned by the CP Group in China was a great experience. And I'll talk a little bit more about that and the experience that we learned about understanding customers in China as well. As we go through today, you'll hear me talk about retail, but also I've had experience in running the professional bull riders. That goes right along with retail, doesn't it? It doesn't, but I want you to understand this. When you think about consumers, when you think about a fan base, we did the same kind of thing. We tried to understand what that fan base was looking for and how we brought them content. Back in 2013, we were voted the fastest growing sport in the United States. Now, we operated in 5 different countries. Had a great experience with our group in Australia, Brazil, Canada, and Mexico. But it's also great to think about, again, not just the customers, but a fan base. They told us what we could do to expand that sport, and that's how we got that recognition. So I'm going to talk today about the evolution of retail. I'm going to talk about consumer demands and looking at how that's changed over the last 50 years. Now, I really haven't been involved in retail for 50 years, close, but not 50 years. Seasonal changes from a produce standpoint, thinking about supply chain, distribution, and when you think about cold chain, and what's evolved from a distribution standpoint, and then the whole brick and mortar shift to more of an omni-channel, and how consumers want to shop today has changed so much. And then we'll talk a little bit about Asia as well. Now, a lot of you are looking at this picture and you're thinking, what is he doing there? Any of you recognize what this is? Now, I'm also a rancher. I focus on good quality beef and world-class cutting horses. So I love a great horse, and my wife and I run a ranch in Oklahoma. We've raised several great cutting horses, and that mare right there is won over $340,000 and one of the best mares in the nation right now. Her mother is one of the top producing mares in the United States on performance horses. So not only do I like what we do to take care of customers, I also want to make sure we're doing the right thing from an agriculture standpoint and taking care of this for generations. I think I was supposed to put, is it the green button? There we go. Thinking about evolution of retail. You know, back in from 1975 to 1995, really the brick and mortar focus. You think about, really now you look back at it, it was really the inconvenience of how people shopped. We set specific hours. We only had certain products that we would have inside of a retail store. We really didn't have the way to anticipate the needs because it was really just a POS when we thought about how at the point of sale of the purchase, how you would go back and focus on really having the right products. It was hard to anticipate. Thinking about 1995 to 2010, loyalty programs started to change, more information that you could get about consumers. Think about email marketing. You know, you think about that today and you think email marketing, but that was a big deal back then. Really a segment from an audience standpoint and really looking at ways to tailor messaging. But again, the expectations of the consumers have continued to change. Consumers expect personalized experiences. You know, I've listened this morning, when you think about this, ethical sourcing, transparency, sustainability, wellness, all the things that you have done here and built a brand on in New Zealand. It's important that you make sure you continue to recognize that and what that means to really service that consumer for the future. It's great to hear and see what you've done. I'm looking forward to getting out and spending more time in a lot of your retail the next few days. Food trends. Thinking back to what happened when you looked at a grocery store or a retail store, 1975 to 95. Shelf stability. When you think about really, you think about space management, having products that were different facings and how we did that. Convenience, affordability, canned, frozen goods, brand loyalty. A lot of the big brands were so important. But think about 95 to 2010 again, organic really started to change how people looked at specifically around fresh products. Natural foods, questioning additives, thinking about GMOs. It all started to shift from a consumer standpoint. And then think about currently what's happening right now from a business standpoint when you think about food trends and how it's shifted. Plant-based alternatives, functional foods. Think about TikTok and Instagram and how that creates the demand for products, how it's really shifted from, back to what we talked about earlier, getting an email, local and regional sourcing, the quality that's built by that, and that continues today, whether that's New Zealand, whether that's anywhere else in the world. It's important to make sure that we're taking care of that on a regional and local basis. Really thinking about produce and seasonality. Think back to how strawberries were purchased 1975 to 1995. It was really just a spring treat, right? Thinking about peaches, maybe just a summer treat. But consumers were okay with that at that point in time because that's really all they knew. I could only get it when it was in season. Think about what changed them from an improved logistics, international trade deals, and really the expansion of year-round access to products. By 2025, seasonality has increased, artificially driven in a lot of cases, controlled environments. You understand what's happened, that urban grocery and microgreens, and how the business has continued to evolve because of the consumer's needs. But it's that 24/7 access to what the consumer wants when they want it. They're no longer willing to just say, I can only get it at this time of year. They continue to want to have the products when they want to have it, not wait for us to go back and decide when they get it. In my opinion, the biggest change in retail, what's happened over the last 50 years, is the whole thought process. And it was great to hear the guys from Woolworths talking about this earlier. But it's this whole distribution and cold chain, reliability, the reach, and really being able to rely on the products. When you think about what's changed from that spoke and hub back in the 1975 to 1995, there was a distribution center. We would ship products to 150 different stores. That's really all that we could do at that point in time, and really try to figure out how to get that product into the stores, into the consumers. It has evolved. Cold chain. When you think about investing in the automation and temperature, how important that is. And as you well know, produce doesn't get better from the moment it's picked. It continues to deteriorate. So speed, reliability are so important to that consumer. And it's important to make sure whether it's temperature, humidity, spoilage risk, it's real time. And knowing that, it was great to hear the Woolworth group talk about that. But ensuring freshness is so important to that consumer. Traceability. And we all know what happened with COVID-19 and the changes that consumers have expected. And that last mile of delivery, but now it's last mile of delivery even into the home. And lastly, thinking about omni-channel, thinking about those single operations and really what that's evolved into. Thinking about the selection of products and what's evolved from e-commerce in those 1995 to 2010, but the changes that have happened now and how the customer shops. Omni-channel, what does that mean? Allowing the consumer to shop how they want to shop. They can choose whether it's online. They can choose how they want to purchase the product in store. But it's important to make sure you continue to understand allowing the customer to shop how they want to shop. And the retailers that have figured that out, guess what? They're doing really well. The ones that are still trying to stay like they were 10, 15 years ago, and you can see this around the world, they're not doing as well. You've got to make sure that you're taking care of that consumer and understanding the customer's needs each and every day. Thinking about omni-channel, it gives the consumer the right to see what's really in inventory. Flexible fulfillment, consistent pricing and loyalty, personalized experience across all platforms, meeting the consumer where they want to shop, mobile-first shopping, hybrid customer journeys, social selling, and live e-commerce, conversational commerce, not just making it a one-way message, but listening to that consumer. And this whole ecosystem and how that's integrated, still allowing them to shop if they want to shop in a physical store, but more importantly, it's how they want to shop. All very, very important. Here's the thing I would tell you. 2025 and beyond, what do you have to think about? Omnichannel experience, very important. Consumers expect to shop, as we just said, how, when, and where they want to shop. Success is built on ease, trust, personalization, and speed. Retail has to remain fluid and responsive, and always know your customer. Know your customer. I'm going to kind of wrap up here with a real quick walkthrough and thinking about how the changes have happened throughout different areas, specifically Asia. I know you are a large customer. You have a large customer base in China, and I ran the third largest retailer there. In that, it's owned by the CP Group. CP Group is a large conglomerate throughout the world, specifically a lot around Asia. The retail experience that you saw and how it evolved in China, we did some things to really change that business. We did focus groups to understand what the Chinese consumer was looking for. Focus groups were almost unheard of in China as we tried to work on turning that business around. But we learned a lot of things. Fresh and fresh food was the #1 expectation that they had for products. I think about your ability to export more throughout Asia. China is a great market. There's lots of other places that you can continue to grow throughout Asia. We also learned that the one-child policy created a real focus at how they wanted to treat and raise their children. That one-child policy had 2 grandparents, mom and dad, all that income was focused. We built baby centers inside the stores. We built a whole economic way that they could look at toys. Educational toys was very important to that consumer. And we really did a lot of things to understand that consumer and turn that business around within 2 years. As you think about the ways that that has evolved in China and the digital application of what happened in China, actually China, they embraced and moved quicker than most places in the world. That cost of in-home delivery happened much quicker because of what they were able to actually put it on a motorbike, deliver it to the house. That has all, when you think about Alibaba and what happened with Taobao and their launch in 2003, I'm sure a lot of you know Taobao was really their first, Alibaba was built from a manufacturing standpoint and reaching out to people looking for manufacturing. Taobao was really that first consumer insight. Online payment, Alipay. Urbanization continued in China. It was really, really important for them to understand what was happening with that consumer. We did a lot to continue to make sure we stayed close from a focus group standpoint. Now thinking about how it's evolved from 2015 to 2020, online to offline, food delivery, local retail, Alibaba's new retail launch, really thinking about ways to integrate physical stores but more of that digital play. Live streaming e-commerce, WeChat mini programs. A lot of things have happened in China faster than what you would see those anywhere else in the world. What happened during the pandemic? Pandemic in China, that experience changed very quickly. COVID-19 pushed digital even further. China was basically shut down. A lot of times they couldn't even get out of their homes. It had to be delivered. Luxury brands took a whole change and a shift. That Gen Z consumer really wanted to understand how to get that online experience quicker. Local brands, domestic players, fashion, beauty, and then that real e-commerce expanded, and really thinking about platforms that would allow them to do that. But China continues to be a great market, and I continue to think that as we look at the experience and what has happened in China, it will continue to be a great customer for you. Here's the thing I would say. You know your customers. You have to continue to study that each and every day. Even as a wholesaler, it's important to make sure that you understand your customer. Kate, I think this conference is a great way to get together, share ideas. Again, making sure that we keep the consumer at everything we do is really critical. Spend time out in retail. Spend time out with consumers. Travel globally to understand what is changing and what is happening around the world. You can continue to look for bigger trade partners. And as we mentioned earlier, as Amer mentioned, it's really important that we look for a lot of those great partners and how we can help New Zealand grow. Kate, that whole challenge around doubling the business by 2035, that won't happen by accident. Know your consumer, know how to support your customer, even as a wholesaler, that make things happen each and every day. You work hard. I know you work hard. Continue to do that and focus at the consumer. Great to be with you today, and thank you.
Look, we're just going to take a seat, Jim, over on the couch here, and we'll go into a little bit more of a fireside chat. There's no fire, but we'll do that all the same. So over we come, and make yourself comfy here. Oh, I'll try and not fall off the stage. Look, Jim, I just want to start by moving out of the greenery. I just want to start by thanking you for your insights and your experience, certainly from my perspective. Someone with your depth of knowledge and the opportunity to have experienced so many different consumer channels and markets is incredibly insightful to this audience. One of the things that also resonates deeply with me is around serving your customer. So having spent the last 17 or 18 years running my own business, the only way business is successful is if we serve our customers. But look, for a bit of fun, I guess when I was doing a little bit of research ahead of this, I guess one of the things that stood out for me in terms of one of your bios was, and you had a great picture of your beautiful mare on the presentation there, but you know, they describe what you've done in the sports of rodeo as the toughest sport on dirt. And that really resonated because when I think about our growers here, you know, they are a pretty tough bunch. So I think you're probably up for the questions that we have today coming in. So look, the very best one that's at the very top of the list to start with, I thought was a nice way to lead into things. And that was, what is your fastest barrel racing time?
Well, here's the thing, Kate. I don't have barrel racing horses.
There you go. So to whoever asked that question.
So I wouldn't be able to tell you the fastest run. Now, I can tell you the highest scores that I've had with some of my cutting horses, but as far as barrel racing, we don't have any fast times.
Well, look, we'll have to go back to the drawing board to learn the difference between barrel racing and cutting horses. Look, Jim, I guess one of the things that has been front of mind for me, you talk about the importance of serving the customer. But how do we stay in front of the customer? You've just alluded to all the change that you've seen through, you know, the last 20, 30, 40 years. This is changing so quickly. What are the things that we need to be doing to stay ahead of that change when it is changing so quickly? Adama also talked to AI. Those things are different today to what we will see tomorrow. What's some advice you have?
I think is Is that still, yeah, there we go. I think as Elmer said even earlier, there's a whole thought around technology and making sure that, we're embracing that. As you look at artificial intelligence, it's amazing the information that you can get off artificial intelligence. But I'll say this, the best way to me is knowing your customer and getting out and talking to them, spend time with them. And in some cases, you'll have industries that you may not know exactly, or the customer may not anticipate what's changing, the different ways of sustainability, things that are going to be applied. How do you share that information with them and continue to gather feedback? So it's important to make sure you do it always, technology, AI, engagement with that consumer, and then making sure that you're letting them give you feedback, and in some ways, share things that you know are happening that they may not expect.
So just to pick up on that point around sustainability, because something that in my mind our growers have done a wonderful job over the past number of years is to actually really showcase the sustainability measures that they undertake within their own business. But how do we actually go forward and sell the value of that to the customer? And in your mind, is sustainability one of those things that the customer's prepared to pay for, or is it just the new chips to the game that we have to meet to be able to play in the market?
Well, I think that consumers are always willing to pay for great quality products. As you go back and look at, I can give you an example. As we started our consumer insights in China specifically, every week you would see an ad on cooking oil and rice. And whoever had the best price, guess what they had? They had the most customers in their store. But you weren't building loyalty with that consumer long term. And so we actually made some decisions to fire some customers, which sounds odd, but went back to focus on high quality. And we would have a great price, but we weren't always the lowest price because we focused more. The CP group with that consumer already had a stamp of quality with that customer. They recognized it that way. We made sure we had a good price, but still prices that we could make a good margin on, and along with that, bring great quality of product when we did it.
So when you were doing that, did you have the opportunity to also go out and connect with the growers whose products you were actually supplying through your stores? And what was that experience like for you?
We spent a lot of time, whether that was with specific growers, in Hainan, China. We would go spend time in different countries to understand. The CP group is actually based out of Thailand. We wouldn't go look at poultry and how it was taken care of in other countries. So really making sure that we got the feedback at the ground level to understand what were the dynamics of what they were facing as a grower, as a producer of products, and making sure that we understood what could we do to help serve them better that also then would allow us to serve the customers better as well.
Yeah, I think that serving the customer better, how do we keep focusing on that? So if I come to some of the questions that are coming through now, whose job do you think it is to create a fan base for fresh produce? Is it just the retailers, or what role should everyone play in the chain?
No, I think it's everyone throughout the, whether it's the grower, you look at how a lot of people, specifically look at New Zealand, and how you have built a brand for quality and sustainability and what people expect to see from New Zealand products that's grown here. It's important to make sure that we're all focused at that it's not just one part of it, that it's not just the retailer. It's also the growers. It's also from a government standpoint. It's also testimonials. It's also making sure that we're out letting people try products through demos and ways that we can help educate them about the difference in quality. That's how you'll continue to build that brand.
So how do we, when we talk about, the future role of technology, how do we overcome these potential downsides of technology around transparency and validation of what we're doing? Because it's very easy to, make great copies these days. What do our growers, from your perspective, need to do to actually validate the great work that they're doing so that it's not easily copied and I guess ripped off in the market, for want of a better term?
Well, here's the thing. If you're worried about someone stealing it, you're probably worried about the wrong thing.
Yeah.
The important piece is to continue to improve and continue to stay out in front of technology needs. From a standpoint, I would embrace it. Don't try to shy away from it, but do everything that you can to make sure you're always moving forward. Again, I think it's important to have IP. I think it's important to have IP protection. But if that's the thing that you're most worried about, you're worried about the wrong thing.
Yeah. So how can growers create the local and unique offerings with the large retail chains who have a focus on removing grower brands in favour for their own house brands?
Well, I think brand names have a spot, okay? And then also in-house brands have a spot as well. But here's what I would say. Most consumers understand the way that quality, when you look at what determines quality, usually the brand name is what determines the quality. Everything else is a copy. It may be a cheaper price, there may be something different, but the reason that brands exist is because people trust that. They know that that's the brand. And when I buy this brand, I'm getting this level of expectation with the product. The credibility is built with the brand. It's important to have own brands. There's things that retailers do for margin to build that, but really it comes down to the brand to determine the value of the own brand.
Yeah, so a combination of those things of price, quality, service that come through from that.
All really important.
Look, one of the other questions that's just come through here is, does the global market care for seasonality, or do robust import programs support good consumer demand all year round, sometimes at the expense of growers?
Well, I think there's always a uniqueness here. But as we talked about, produce has changed so much. Again, it's not just strawberries in the springtime anymore, peaches in the summer, oranges at Christmas time. It's important to make sure that we're embracing that. Now, as a grower, you may understand that your area only has a climate that can produce certain things at certain times, but do it the best. And people will continue to make that purchase. When I look at the demand of consumers around the world, specifically when you look at the United States, the consumer wants product yearly. My wife loves blueberries. And just because they're out of season doesn't play anymore. She wants blueberries. And so it's important to make sure the consumer demand will help drive how we can work with those growers.
Look, I think it's really interesting when we think about some of those changing global trends around food, and very briefly this morning I mentioned to you an article I read yesterday that was focused on the GLP-1s, which is the synthetic insulins and other hormone replacement that we know as Ozempic and Wegovy. And there's a lot of research starting to come out around how that is driving down people's volume of food consumption. What do you see as the opportunities or perhaps the challenges for the likes of the horticulture sector in overcoming those future-focused trends for the way in which we consume food?
Well, I think that a lot of that is education. It's important for consumers to understand nutrition, how transparency of how products are grown. When I look at my kids and my grandkids now, the transparency and trust and credibility of where that's grown is continue to be so important. It's going to be more transparent as we move forward. So helping educate, making sure we're staying out in front of that, I think will continue to help no matter what that consumer is looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it's an interesting space just how quickly all of that is changing. So in America, there is a massive domestic consumer base. Here in New Zealand, we have a population of roughly 5 million people. So there is quite a substantial difference between our ability to access a big domestic consumer base. What are some of the things that you think we might do here to create a better international customer so that we can actually serve them like perhaps the US might serve its domestic customers?
Well, I think you've already started a lot of that. I think about Kiwi Gold and, how you've built a brand of what is coming from New Zealand. The Minister of Finance talked about the trip to New York and seeing all those brands that were from New Zealand. you're known for the quality of products. You're known for the whole thing. When you think about the credibility that you built, continue that. People will have a demand for that, whether that's the U.S., China, Japan, wherever that may be. There'll be a demand there for that. Australia.
Tariffs aside. Look, I think...
And I do not have a direct line to President Trump. I wish I could do something about tariffs, but I cannot. So
we won't put you on the spot with the tariffs question.
I'll work on something different.
I guess one of the other things I'd be interested to see from your experience is how do our smaller tier crops and our smaller product lines actually, look to grow their presence in the market? And what are some of the things you've seen that might have been successful in that space?
Well, it's hard to look at every different aspect, but I'll give you let's take beef for an example. And if you looked at the U.S. consumer, select beef was the lowest grade of beef and again, a lot of focus at pricing. But as through education, the beef growers continue to talk about choice beef, why it was important, the quality of beef, and guess what? The taste is different. And people recognize that. So I think there are lots of things that can be applied to that. Same thing here in New Zealand. Even a smaller grower, if it's good quality, it has great taste, you'll find a consumer that wants it.
Yeah. So it was really interesting a little bit early in Adama's discussion. He put out there that he was a bit of a fan of the fact that we might consider new gene technology, associated tools, etc. I guess my question for you that has come through on the chat is, you've said that customers accept that New Zealand products are good quality and they're well received. Do you think the customer in the future is going to care whether our products are GMO or GMO free?
I think organic is probably one of those great examples that, as producers came out, organic was kind of the trend. And people realized very quickly the cost difference, there wasn't the value in that. So I think it's the same thing. It's education. It's making sure people have transparency. They understand the quality of the product that's there. I don't think it'll be that important in the future.
Yeah, great. I appreciate that insight. I guess one of the other questions is around, how do we, again, take on this opportunity for greater investment in our sector? We have had, 19% growth over the last, 12 months or so, which is pretty phenomenal. We are looking out to a world of opportunity in our sector. But how do we bring together the opportunities for growth without compromising the margins that our growers continue to receive so that there can be a win-win inside of our system?
Again, I think it's education. I think it's working with those different countries that are out there. That 19% growth, Kate, that's phenomenal. $8.5 billion on the horticulture, and thinking about, what is that, about 10% of all exports that went out?
Something like that.
Maybe a little over. So, continuing to make sure that you're out in front of the global market. You can't stay to yourself. If you really want to grow, you've got to get out and market yourself. I think Arma talked about brands as well. Building those brands as well-known quality, you'll have consumers wanting to purchase that around the world. So I think it's important. We always want to make sure we take care of ourselves nationally, but it's also important to think about how do we expand that knowledge globally.
Look, I'm conscious of the fact that we've only got a very short amount of time left to roll in our session here. So I do just want to take the opportunity to wrap things up. And if I've heard the points that you've made, the discussion is we need to focus on servicing the customer first and foremost. We need to focus on how we actually go out and educate them about the value of our products and that we can do that and we can continue to grow our sector alongside all of those opportunities that exist there. Just to you, the last word, anything that you would like to share with us around what you see as the opportunity for the horticulture sector here in New Zealand?
Well, again, I'll just reemphasize this. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to look at trends that are happening globally. How do you continue to look for growth in the right spots? Don't necessarily chase commodity type products. That's not what you want to do. You have great quality products that are grown here. own it. Make sure that you're out also educating the world on what you have. So I think if you do those things, get back to focusing at the customer, you'll have a lot of opportunity for more growth in the future.
That's great. Look, I just want you all to thank Jim for his wonderful presentation this morning, for taking the time to answer our questions. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. And